Cal Kestis has a problem. He's not just a space boy learning how to be a spaceman. He's a space boy learning how to be a spaceman with space powers. That's right. This guy is a Jedi. You know, he's the lead in this new game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So obviously he's got some Jedi action going down. The story of this game, which is coming out on November 15th, from Electronic Arts, is that Cal is a Padawan learner, one of those little Jedi apprentices with like the long braid. You might have seen him in some movies a few years back. And when the Order 66 goes into place and the Empire massacres all the Jedi, he somehow is able to elude them. And then he goes into hiding because in this new world after the collapse of the Jedi Order, the Force is pretty much illegal. If you use the Force and you aren't with the Empire, you're going to be executed. So that's the backstory of Fallen Order, the story of this young man learning how to be a Jedi without really having proper training, a young man who happens to look a lot like Archie from Riverdale for some reason. And let me tell you, they don't like it when you bring that up when you're talking to the designers of this game. So I got to play a little bit of Fallen Order this week out in California at a preview event in Anaheim, and I have some thoughts on it as a solid Star Wars fan, not some kind of obsessive junkie who knows all the minutiae, but a guy who likes the movies and has seen a couple episodes of cartoons here and there. It's a very satisfying Star Wars type experience with the little bit I played. So the story of the game is learning how to use the Force. And even though it's a third-person action-adventure game, kind of like Uncharted or Tomb Raider with lightsabers, that process of learning the Force actually is a great framework for a Metroid-style game. You'll be exploring these different planets, and you'll see areas that you can't get to because you haven't remembered how to use or learned how to use the Force power necessary to access those areas. As someone who's a huge fan of that kind of backtracking in games, that sort of almost like taunting design where, oh, you see a thing and you know it'll be hours before you can do it. So once you finally do it, it feels so good. That has me excited. And as a third-person action game, which this is made by Respawn, the people who did Titanfall 2 and some of the folks who used to be at Infinity Ward, who, of course, created the first Modern Warfare game about 11 years ago. They're not used to third-person games. They're generally a first-person studio. But this is a third-person game, and from what I was able to glean during the 2 or so hours I played it, they've made a fairly seamless transition from behind the camera to being in front of the camera. It is a heavy lightsaber combat game. When I say it's like Uncharted with a lightsaber, that is not in any way an under-exaggeration or anything like that. I don't even know if that's a word, but let's just assume it is and keep on plugging along. And God bless you, whoever just sneezed elsewhere in the studio. Please keep all this in, Andrew. So, you are this Cal Kestis fella who you travel around the universe in a spaceship with another former Jedi who has closed herself off to the Force willingly due to some trauma in her background that we don't know yet. And her sidekick, who is a 4-armed, wisecracking alien pilot. Cal also has his own adorable little droid, which has multiple uses within the course of the game. Like the droid is in charge of your map, and he also helps you unlock various boxes you'll see throughout. Like the Uncharted games, as I was saying earlier, a huge part of this is third-person platforming and puzzle solving by climbing ledges and jumping from one platform to another, trying to figure out how to manipulate, say, wind tunnels to blow objects into the right exact spot you need them to be in so that they'll open up doors that you have to move on to. The preview we actually were playing an ancient temple on a now deserted planet that's been taken over by the Empire for mining purposes. So it actually had a visual similarity somewhat to Uncharted, if Uncharted games took place on alien planets. The Empire is everywhere on the level I played. Stormtroopers of various skills and varieties, Some of them are just typical garden variety troopers who have blasters, and if you block at the right moment, you'll deflect that blast back to them and it'll kill them in one hit, something that you might be familiar with from the Star Wars movies. Others are a little bit more powerful. There's a new special kind of stormtrooper introduced, I believe, for the game. It might have come from one of the cartoons, called a Purge Trooper. These are, if you've seen any of the artwork from the game, they're the black and red armored stormtroopers who look kind of like Snake Eyes almost from G.I. Joe, or sort of like a more mundane infantry type version of Darth Vader almost. And those guys are slightly more challenging than the typical lightsaber. The combat is, when you're using the lightsaber, is heavy in timing and parries. You hold the lightsaber to block. If you parry at the right moment, you'll catch your opponent off guard and you're going to be able to get a few hits in on him. It gets complicated when you have a mass of enemies storming you all at once, which will happen occasionally. Of what I've seen, it's generally the easier enemies that do that. But that sensation of sort of that balletic combat that you get from those old Arkham Batman games, there's a sense of that here with the lightsaber as you're twirling and whirling between stormtroopers and cutting native beasts in half. There's some graphic violence in this game. It feels very satisfying to control Cal as he turns into this one-man wrecking crew. And he also, as I said earlier, he unlocks force powers, the ability to pull enemies towards him or push them away. And using those abilities, as I said, he's able to unlock new areas where you can find useful power-ups and other stuff like that. The demo I got, it's mostly set on one planet. There is a mechanism where you travel from planet to planet on your ship, and you have freedom to travel in any order that you want. There were actually 2 planets open to us. They strongly suggested to go the route that I took because the other one was for a character that was far more powered up and had more experience and stuff like that. There is a skill tree. You get experience points. You unlock new skills. And so when I finished that first planet, there was obviously built up to a boss battle and everything like that. The next planet I went to was Kashyyyk, which, if you know Star Wars, is the home of the Wookiees. And this is where I started to meet characters that were recognizable from the Star Wars universe and not ones created just for the game, like Saw Gerrera, which, if you've seen Rogue One, is Forrest Whitaker's character. And lots of mentions of Wookiees on Kashyyyk, although I didn't get to see one before the demo time ended. It has that sort of Mass Effect feel in terms of being able to pick what planet you go to. And they did warn us that if we stayed on the planet our demo started at, there wouldn't be much to do because that planet had already been completed in order to get us to the point we started at in the demo. So obviously there will be planets that you pretty much exhaust and don't have a lot of use to go back to. Although in a conversation with one of the game's level designers, they did tell me that the Metroid style mechanics of unlocking new abilities will compel you to go back to planets at any point throughout the game. Planets that you first visited early in the game, you might have spaces that you can't access until a force power that you unlock several planets later. So I played it for about 2 hours. I am, again, a Star Wars fan, but in no way a devotee, and it was a very fun Star Wars-y type thing that I got into there. And later on, we got to go to Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, and you know I'm a huge theme park fan, and man, that was a lot of fun. So Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, it's going to be out in November 15th on all the typical suspects, the Xbox One and the PS4 and the PC, and it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on here at Paste. Thanks for watching. I'm Garrett, and have a good day.